Excuse me. Sir? I was wondering if you might recognize a girl in this photograph?
¿Qué carajo estás haciendo aquí? ¡Lárgate, cabrón!
Sorry to have bothered you.
Freeze! I said freeze!
Ganados are some of the most common enemies that you'll be facing in the game Resident Evil 4. However, while you may associate the term with the villagers at the start of the game, Ganados is actually a term that encompasses many of the enemies that you'll be seeing throughout the events of the game, be they villagers, cultists, militia members, even to the higher up level enemies such as JJ or Dr. Salvador. Beginning with the first Ganados that you'll encounter in the game, the villagers are easily the most sympathetic foes that you'll be facing off against in the Ganado ranks. The tale of the villagers as we know it begins with the story of the first Castellan of a nearby castle and his attempts to remove paganism from the region. The first Castellan of Salazar Castle and his triumph over Los Illuminados was one of the great stories passed down through the generations to the citizens of the town of El Pueblo. Parents would tell their children the tale of how he'd saved the region and defeated the cult of Los Illuminados back during the time of the Spanish Inquisition, liberating the region from the cult's oppressive clutches by sealing their symbol of worship, Las Plagas, under his castle, which, in turn, allowed El Pueblo to become a peace-loving village. And although they were not the richest of people, the villagers were happy in their lives, relying predominantly on agriculture to sustain their way of life and relying on the bonds of community and the words of the church to fill their lives with purpose. However, in the end, it would be this dedication to the church that would bring about the destruction of El Pueblo.
Oh, la campana. Es hora de rezar. Tenemos que irnos. Lord Sadler.
The chief of this village was a man named Bitores Mendez, a village elder who had once been the father at the local church. Unbeknownst to the other villagers of El Pueblo, Mendez had been in contact with a man named Osman Sadler, the leader of the current-day cult of Los Illuminados, and through their interactions, Mendez was persuaded to join. Their new association allowing Sadler to tap into the village's manual labor to help him excavate Salazar's castle and retrieve the plagas that had been long since buried beneath. These laborers managed to find the remains of the parasites, although they had been long since fossilized from their centuries beneath the castle. However, unbeknownst to the villagers, the parasites lived on in these mines, taking on the form of small spores that were inhaled by the laborers without their knowledge. And as time passed, these spores grew, eventually becoming adult plagas and giving the cult what it needed to retake control of the region. With Las Plagas now in his possession, Sadler set his eyes upon the village, and with the help of Chief Mendez, called for the villagers to meet at the church on the Sunday following the village's harvest festival. It was here that the villagers were given a different spin on the tales that they'd been told of the first Castellan of Salazar Castle. Sadler painted the first Castellan as a vengeful man. Seeing the good deeds that Los Illuminados was doing for the region, the jealous Castellan attacked the followers of Las Plagas, taking the parasite away from the members of the Los Illuminados and sealing it away from their grasp. But thanks to the 8th Castellan realizing the error in his ancestors' ways, Las Plagas had been returned to its rightful owners. Swayed by the words of Lord Sadler, the villagers were converted to this new religion, and once they were on board with the ideology, were given an injection from a strain of Las Plagas, sold to them under the idea that it was an infusion of sacred blood. And though some feared this new change, through the pressure of their friends and family, all were injected with the parasite. not long after the events at the church, members of El Pueblo soon began to notice symptoms of the infusion: headaches and convulsions, loss of empathy or feeling of any kind. The once happy village became an emotionless stomping ground for the parasites to flourish. The once beloved children, not old enough to deal with the incursion of Las Plagas, soon began to die off in violent ways, with their parents having nothing more to offer than blank faces at their deaths. And with the village now completely subservient to Las Plagas, and by extension Los Iluminados, when word came down from Lord Sadler to kill an expected intruder, the villagers were unequivocally ready to comply.
¡No dejes que se escape! Vayan por detrás.
Who are these people?
¡Bloqueale el paso!
What are they planning? Chainsaw.
The next group of Ganados that you'll encounter in the game are the cultists or zealots of Salazar Castle. We learn significantly less about these Ganados than we do about the villagers, however there are a few things that can be assumed based on their attire and location. The cultists of Salazar Castle have been members of the Los Iluminados for quite some time, living lives completely devoted to worshipping the parasite that they've willingly accepted into their blood after the excavations of the castle were complete. It's also likely that they've been living with the parasites for far longer than any of the villagers, as the parasites seem to have completely rotted away most of their humanity. Unlike the villagers, the cultists often don't speak in sentences when attacking the player, instead muttering phrases over and over again, such as
Cerebro, cerebro, cerebros.
Or
Muere, 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 muere.
It can also be assumed that the robes that the cultists wear are tied to their ranks in the organization, black robes being the lowest members of the cult, purple being the middle-tiered members, and red being the shot callers of the cult, often seen wearing a goat skull to accompany their robes. The cultists also have very pale skin, which is probably not an effect of the parasite itself, but rather a side effect of their constant resignment to the castle, preferring to stay inside and perform ceremonies to honor Las Plagas. The final members of the Ganados are the members of Sadler's private army, the militia. Touted as Sadler's elite Ganados, the militia are soldiers who've been assigned by Sadler to protect his island complex as well as perform Sadler's Plan B protocol should his attempt to control Ashley Graham fail. Other than that, however, we don't know much about these forces. They are stronger than any other type of Ganado, perhaps speaking to their knowledge and abilities before becoming Ganado, but that's about it. One thing is for sure though, whether they be militia, cultists, or villagers, Ganados are savage enemies to come up against. And thanks to the parasite that now courses through their bodies, these enemies can take a beating and deal one back twice as brutal.
On the other side of the bridge.
Yeah.
I got it!
Encontre!
You take that one.
Okay.
Ready?
¡Maldito sea! ¡Mierda!
Come on.
Yeah.